Welcome back to State of the Stallions. Your Stallions have finished the regular season 9-1 with the best record in the league and are the team to beat heading into the postseason. However, that ninth win came by the slimmest of margins as all-star kicker Jake Bates had to miss a field goal in the last second for the Stallions to win. So what is it? Should we feel confident for the Stallions heading into the playoffs, or should we feel nervous? Or maybe a mixture of both? We're going to talk about the game on this episode of State of the Stallions and get you ready for the postseason as the Stallions enter their final stretch. Thank you for tuning in.
Here we go. Hey, giddy up on three. 1, 2, 3. Giddy up.
You can feel the buzz when you're around this city. People have fallen in love with the Birmingham Stallions. Here we go. We're getting a little juice going.
And Birmingham is going to win the USFL championship.
Well, the Stallions won their 10th game of the season, bounced back after that loss to San Antonio, and moved to 9-1 on the year and 6-0 in conference against the USFL. As great as that is, though, it was not an easy win. As I mentioned in the opening, it came down to a last-second missed field goal by the Michigan Panthers for the Stallions to pull out the W 20-19. This is not really ideal to be playing what I think many people would consider to be the Stallions, not the Stallions' best football heading into the postseason, but I want to talk about that on this episode. I think, first of all, what needs to be acknowledged is that whatever issues the Stallions seem to have against San Antonio in Week 9 did carry over to some extent in Week 10. My first takeaway from this game was that the Stallions' mojo was just still not there. If you go back and listen after the game, I actually did a Spaces on X, and it was recorded where it was me talking as well as some other people that follow the team and fans and reporters and things like that, just kind of giving our instant reactions. And one of the things that someone said, which I think they used the right word, was, and they were actually referring to Adrian Martinez, but I think it's really fair for the whole team. It feels like this team has regressed over the last couple of weeks. Going back and looking at some of the early talk from the beginning of the year about some of the struggles the team had, about some of its vulnerabilities, about some of its weaknesses, those same things have sort of reared their head here at the end of the season. While in the middle of the season, the Stallions really seem to be in a hot streak and we're knocking it out of the park. So I don't know what exactly it is or why it's happened. Again, maybe it's the defensive coordinator situation. Maybe it's the lack of meaningful games, again, with the playoff spot locked up. I don't know, but for whatever reason, it seems like the Stallions are not playing their best football heading into a critical moment here as we enter the postseason. So the Stallions, again, seemed out of sync on Saturday. They just didn't seem like themselves. They didn't seem, fired up to play. They didn't seem on top of their game. And I think, again, I mentioned this on the Spaces, but I can, and Spaces are on X, by the way, or formerly known as Twitter, if you're not familiar with that. But again, like I said, it's recorded. You can go back and listen to it. But I said on there that the defensive woes certainly concern me, but not to the same degree as the offensive, because on the defensive side, you at least have a very tangible, reasonable excuse in the sense that you change your defensive coordinator in week 8, week 9 of the season. I mean, that's significant. And Skip said, it's like trying to get on the roller coaster as it's going down the hill. I mean, that's a big challenge. And so while I think the defense has a lot to address, the bigger question for me is what's going on with the offense? The offense has just seemed out of sync for 2 weeks now, and the production just hasn't been there. You go back to last week when we played San Antonio, and it was rough. 9 points, the worst the Stallions have had since coming back in 2022. They were 3 of 10 on third down. They only put up 278 yards, which they got outgained by San Antonio, which again has been very rare for this team this year. They couldn't run the ball, only had 78 rushing yards. They didn't really try to run the ball either. I mean, they only gave their running backs 9 rushing attempts. Most of their rush yards came from Adrian. And they struggled to score in the red zone. They only had, 1 touchdown and 2 red zone attempts. It just wasn't a great offensive outing. And then you head into this week, same thing, really. I mean, an even worse production in terms of yards, 223 yards. A big reason for that was they gave up 4 sacks. or excuse me, sorry, 5 sacks, gave up 5 sacks, which negated 43 yards that they had. So their net passing yards was only 120. That's probably got to be the lowest number of the year, I would assume. And 223 yards might be the lowest number of the year for the offense, I would guess, again, without double checking it. But had a little bit more luck running the ball with 103 rushing yards. But again, still only 12 rushing attempts for the running backs between the two of them. Third down, 3 of 11, so even worse than the prior week by one attempt there. A little bit better in the red zone, 2 of 2 in terms of touchdowns, and that really is kind of what bailed us out. But I don't know. Again, this week, again, maybe the excuse is that the offense was trying to be a little more vanilla, and they weren't trying to sort of do too much, give away too much, show too much, since we have to play the Panthers again this weekend in the playoffs. But even with still that being the case, I mean, I think that lack of production 2 weeks in a row is really concerning. And, you know, I don't know. I mean, one of the things I think that maybe is the case, Adrian seemed very hesitant to run. And I don't know if that was something that he decided, if that was something the coaches told him. I'm guessing maybe they didn't want him taking off and scrambling and running a lot because they didn't want to risk him getting hurt. Which, you know, I think is a valid thing. We saw on the Panthers side, their backup quarterback, Bryce Perkins, who I'm much more scared of than their other quarterbacks, took off on his second or third play into the game, tried to hurdle a guy, gets tackled, flipped, lands awkwardly, hurts himself, and might be out next week. And again, he scared me more than any of their other quarterbacks. So if Adrian not taking off and running means that we get him for another week, then I'm fine with it. But it just seemed like, again, he took some of those sacks. Um, 5 sacks. I mean, that might be the most we've given up in a game this year. I'm not sure, but it seems like a lot. And again, I wonder if it was because he was told not to run or he chose not to run. And hopefully that's something that will change this next week, and he'll be able to correct because I think that really hurt the offense. But again, either way, not a great outing. I think when you compare it to when we played Michigan at the beginning of the year, which, granted, these were very different teams back then. We were trying to figure out some things. They were trying to figure out some things, but a little bit different result. I mean, similar score, 2013 instead of 2019, but yardage wise, they only had 205 yards, whereas this time they had 324. We'll talk about that in a second. We, though, had 302 yards, so about 80 more yards than we had this past week. We didn't throw the ball great, but again, that was while we were still kind of figuring out the quarterback situation, but we ran the ball really well. We had 161 rushing yards, which is 60 more, almost 60 more than we had this past week. Again, a lot more committed to the run, 33 rushing attempts as opposed to 17. But where we struggled against them before, which is the same thing this time, was in the red zone and third downs, which we didn't struggle in the red zone this time. We got that corrected, thank God, and we were able to win. But where we struggled in terms of those efficiency metrics, at least on third down, that was still a struggle. So we went 2 of 10 the first time we played them, 3 of 11 this time. And that's rough. I mean, that's a combined 5 of 21 on third downs. That's not going to get it done. So, last time we played them, we were 1 of 6 in the red zone. If we had just punched it in a handful of times there, it wouldn't have been a close game, but we couldn't get in the end zone. So I do think a lot of credit needs to go to the Michigan defense and San Antonio defense. They're both two of the best defenses in this league. But if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And if our offense can't perform against Michigan and San Antonio like it has at times against teams like, Houston, Memphis, and others, then we're going to be in trouble, in the postseason, I think. Or, we're at least going to be in really tight games like we were this past week. So I think that was the biggest, concerning thing for me was just, again, the lack of offensive production, the lack of, again, swagger. Just like I said, to open, the mojo just wasn't there, right? Like they just didn't seem like the same team. Again, they seemed out of sync. And, I'm hoping that sort of the playoff atmosphere, the energy, the vibes, the intensity that will hopefully come with the postseason will correct that. But that's 2 weeks now with that kind of being there, and I think that is hopefully something the leadership on the team in terms of not just coaches but also players are really taking upon themselves heading into this next weekend. As far as the defense, let me talk about the good and the bad with defense because I think there was both. The bad is that some of the ways our defense was exposed in weeks 8 and 9 without John Chavis calling the defense continued to be the case, especially in the first half of the game. I updated the statistics for the averages with Chavis and without Chavis, and you can see it here. And again, in terms of points, yards, those kinds of things, it was kind of more of the same this time around. So, the points average thankfully came down a little bit, but still, we're almost giving up 22 points a game, which is again about a touchdown more than when we had Chavis. Yardage wise, still a problem. Gave up over 320 yards in this game. Brought the average up to about 321 per game with Chamberlain calling the defense, which is again almost 100 yards more than when we had Chavis. Pass yards again about the same as before, but again where we still are struggling is rush yards, giving up 132 rush yards per game with Chamberlain back there. We gave up 135 to Michigan. That slowed down in the second half, but in the first half it felt like they were running all over us. We were less productive in terms of tackles for loss, pass breakups, sacks. All of those numbers are about the same with Chavis and Chamberlain before, but now they've kind of fallen off. Takeaways as well. We didn't get a single takeaway in this game, despite the fact that we were averaging about 2 a game before this. Heading into this game, I think we had like 18 takeaways or something like that, or close to it, 17 maybe. And we didn't get any this game. And then thankfully the red zone percentage and third down percentage actually came down a little bit from this game, but that's partly because they were so high. I mean, it went from about, I think, 71 down to 62 and then 50 down to 46. But still, that red zone percentage is almost double what it used to be with Chavis. And then the third down percentage is still a little bit higher. And again, that's still continued to be a problem for us. It felt like throughout this game, we ended up letting them convert 5 of 13 times. And then on fourth down, again, that actually went up because they converted 1 of 1. So now we're 2 of 3, or deep. I mean, opposing offenses are 2 of 3 against us with Chamberlain calling the defense. So 2 of 3 on fourth down, again, 66%, not great. So again, a lot of the same problems. I didn't really see much in the first half, particularly that impressed me as far as the defense and Coach Chamberlain calling it. Now, where I do think Coach Chamberlain and new coach Anthony Blevins and the other coaches, Bill Johnson and Derek Riley, the 4 of them deserve a lot of credit, is the adjustments they made at the end of the first half and then especially into the second half. And this has actually been a trend for the last 2 weeks. So I went back and looked at it, and in the first half of the last 2 games against San Antonio and Michigan, we've given up 28 points in the first half. In the second half, we've only given up 9. And if you remember, in the second half, the reason we gave up a touchdown against San Antonio was because of a dumb, unnecessary roughness penalty, which otherwise would have been either 3 or 0 points. So it's very possible that we could have only given up 6 or maybe only 3 second half points over the last 2 weeks. So the defense has really come out and played fantastic in the second half of the last 2 games and made a lot of really great adjustments. And so I do think Coach Chamberlain and again the other defensive coaches deserve a lot of credit for that. I tweeted at one point during the game when I was frustrated after Michigan scored their second touchdown of the first half and they went up 16-6. At that point, with about 6 minutes to go in the first half, they'd already racked up 204 yards. They were averaging 9.3 yards per play, and they'd scored 16 points in the first, I guess, about 25 minutes of the game. Which, if you look at the stats, then for the remaining 35 minutes of the game, our defense only gave up about 120 yards. They brought that yards per play average down from 9.3 to 5.8. And again, they only gave up 3 more points the rest of the game. So, for whatever reason, kind of again at the end of the first half into the second half, the defense made some fantastic adjustments and were really able to kind of return to true form. The issue is, again, when we get into the postseason and we're playing the 3 best, potentially, 2 of the 3 best teams, if we beat Michigan this week and then we play one of the best teams in either St. Louis or San Antonio, you can't come out and in the first, half or the first 20 minutes, give up 250 yards, 10 yards per play and 20 points, and then turn around and expect to be able to win again, especially with how good these defenses we're going up against are and how much they've been able to stifle our offensive production over the last couple of weeks. So, again, credit to Chamberlain for his in-game adjustments for the way that the defense has been able to improve throughout the game. But we really need a whole 4 quarters, again, especially this next week against Michigan. So I think that's something to continue to monitor heading into the postseason. And then the last takeaway, or the last thing I would say about this game is, again, this was a weird game because, again, both of these teams knew they were going to be playing each other again the following week in Birmingham in the playoffs. And what I would just say to remember is that really anything can happen this next game. And that could be good or bad for us. But I couldn't help as I was watching this game with us against Michigan to think back against last year and the year prior when we played the New Orleans Breakers 3 times in a year. And last year against New Orleans, the first time we played them, they whooped us, right? It's the worst loss we've ever had. We lost 45-31. I think that's the most points we've ever given up. It's definitely the biggest margin of defeat we've ever had. And then we came out and played them, a few weeks later towards the back end of the season, and we ended up winning that game 24-20. It was a very close game, very hard fought game. And I think we all were expecting a nail biter in that third one. And if you remember, the Stallions came out and just, it straight obliterated the Breakers, the final being 47-22, but most of their points came in garbage time. That game was really one of the most lopsided spring football games I've seen in the last couple of years. So I'm certainly not saying that I expect that to happen in this next game against Michigan or predicting that. And again, that could kind of go either way. I think, we could come out and blow Michigan out in this playoff game. They could come out and blow us out. Or, probably more likely it's going to, again, be another close affair. It's hard for me to expect or predict another blowout, although it always remains a possibility. But with the parity in this league, I just don't think it's going to happen. But my point is, I wouldn't put too much stock in, how week 10 went as far as predicting this next week. I think that we could see a very different game. We could see a very different kind of vibe from both teams. Both teams are going to, again, pull out all the stops now. No holding back. Every trick they've got up their sleeve, we're going to see. All that to say, I think it was great getting the win. We kind of lucked out, frankly, because if we were playing indoors, Jake Bates probably makes that field goal at the end of the game and we lose. Luckily, we won. That gives us a little bit of extra momentum, maybe, and a little bit more swagger back in our step heading into the postseason. So I'll take it. But regardless, I wouldn't put too much stock in this Week 10 game. Everything that's happened in the past is done with. It's over. It has zero relevance or doesn't matter in any way, shape, or form for this upcoming week. And it's really a new season now. And so this is a new season. You have to almost kind of think about it like two new teams going at it for the first time this next week, and anything can happen. And again, that could be great for us or terrible for us, and we'll have to find out, how it goes down on Saturday. But all that to say, I wouldn't put too much stock in this past week, good or bad. So that's where I'm at with it. And let me go ahead and give my star players of the game. Once the season wraps up, either hopefully not this next week, but potentially this next week or the following week. I'll do some kind of recap of the season, talk about which guys earned the most stars, which guys were voted player of the game most. Eventually, I'll give out some awards for the year, all that kind of stuff. But for now, let me just give my star players of Week 10. And for my one-star player, I'm going to go with Taco Charlton. Was really impressed with him, again, in the clutch. If you actually remember against Michigan when we played them, he was voted player of the game, and he was given 3 stars by me as my 3-star player of the game because of the way that he showed up in that game in a super clutch way by racking up 3 sacks, including one kind of down at the wire there when the game was getting close. On a 4th down to seal the game. So, in this game, he had a similar type of play. He had 3 tackles in the game, all solo tackles, tackle for loss, and a sack. And that sack came, late in the game in the 4th quarter when Michigan was trying to put together sort of a last-minute drive to take the lead and win the game. And so, he's just been really clutch for us and extremely clutch the 2 times we played the Panthers. And so I wanted to recognize him for sure. And then my 2-star player, I got to go with Jay Sternberger, coming off a 3-star performance the week before, where he was by far our best player, I thought, against the San Antonio Brahmas. Had a great game this week again. He unfortunately didn't necessarily get a lot of attention as far as on the offensive side. I would love to see us get him some more touches. He only had 3 targets in the game. And of those 3, he caught 2 of them for 53 yards and a touchdown, his long being a 48-yard catch. So, one huge catch at the beginning of the game to get us our first touchdown, and then a second huge catch at the end of the game to get us the touchdown to take the lead. So, I've been saying this on here every week, and I'll keep saying it. I feel like our offense is honestly at its best when it goes through Sternberger. He's a mismatch against any defense in this league. I don't really think anyone can cover him consistently throughout a game. I would really love to see us get him more opportunities. Really, the entire tight end room. I was looking at some of the stats, and our tight ends, all three of them, are averaging 18 or more yards per catch on the season. Um, that sounds so ridiculous and hard to believe. I'll say it again. Jordan Thomas, Marcus Ball, and Jay Sternberger, all three of them, individually, each one of them are averaging 18 or 19 yards per catch, which is crazy. And the unfortunate thing is they don't really have that many catches. I think Jace has around 25 on the season, so that's like an average of 2.5 per game. I think Marcus Ball and Jordan Thomas both have like 4 or 5 catches on the season. So you put that together between the three of them, it's like about 35 catches. And I think collectively the three of them, have maybe 60 targets on the year or something like that. So we're throwing the ball to our tight ends about 5 or 6 times a game. And they're getting, about 3 catches a game, 3 or 4 catches a game. When they're catching the ball, between those 3 or 4 catches, they're putting together collectively about 60 yards a game receiving. But, I would love to see us get them the ball more because they're super dynamic. They're all mismatch. And I just think we're not taking full advantage of that. So, shout out to Jace, though. Continue to make the most of the opportunities he's getting. And again, I thought he was a huge player for us this week. So I had to give him 2 stars for a couple of clutch catches that he had. And then I think, no surprise, my 3-star player of the game got to be CJ Marable. Just kind of did it all for us. This was the first game that Ricky Person sat out, and CJ was huge. He had 3 catches for 29 yards, but did most of his damage on the ground. He had only 10 carries, but 56 yards, so 5.6 yards per carry, and then 2 touchdowns, one being a long of 20 yards where he, just kind of weaved through the offensive line. I didn't even see where he went when I was watching the play live. I thought he got tackled or something. All of a sudden, he just pops out and takes it to the house. So, put up about 85 all-purpose yards, 2 touchdowns on the day to go along with that Jace catch. Those 2 guys had all our touchdowns. And so huge game for him. He was kind of RB1 for the last 2 years. He's kind of, moved into a little bit more of the RB2 role with Ricky Person kind of emerging as the starter, but still a huge player for us and, a clutch guy, a leader on this team, guy who can do it all. And, he really made the most of, thought his opportunity this week with Ricky getting some rest. And so wanted to give him 3 stars for his performance and really kind of putting the offense on his back this week in a lot of ways when again, we continue to struggle. So those are the guys I wanted to recognize this week. I'll stop there. Hopefully, I am going to be traveling later this week, so I'm still trying to figure out if or when or how I'm going to get out a preview of the Michigan game, but I'll certainly try to do that with it being the postseason, and I know everybody being pretty keen on getting ready for that one. So just stay tuned there, and certainly look forward to talking about it, though, and looking forward to seeing it go down. So thanks for sticking along with the ride this season. Again, I think there's a lot to be excited about. Yes, the last couple weeks have not been great, but your Stallions are 9-1. They're in the playoffs. They are the team to beat. They have home field advantage. They're undefeated against USFL teams. I think they've got as good a shot as anyone at pulling it out here heading into the postseason. So stick along for the ride. Let's pack out protective this coming Saturday for the playoff game and support the guys. Shout out to the shirtless fans who were doing their thing again. The pyramid of shirtless folks was rocking again, which was awesome to see. The power of the shirtless folks, I think, just kind of pushed that ball wide right for Jake Bates. So we need to pack that end zone out this next weekend for the playoff game. I'd love to see a couple thousand shirtless dudes there going crazy for the whole game. I think having that sort of supporter section would be incredible. So let's make it happen. Let's do all that we can to support these guys as they look to bring home a 3rd championship in 3 years. So thanks for tuning in. Again, this is Luke Miller, State of the Stallions. Always appreciate everyone listening and all the support you show our hometown professional team. Giddy up.